Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Every Day's a School Day with the Butterfly Princess. This week we're discussing Lecture 16 of the course Jesus and His Jewish Influences, taught by Professor Georgie Magnus. Lecture 16 in the 24 lecture series is entitled The Hebrew Scriptures and the Septuagint. Right, but here goes. The Letter of Aristoteles is an intriguing topic rich with history and mystery, a bit like a story within a story. The Letters of Aristeas is traditionally associated within the origins of the Septuagint, the Greek translation of Jewish scriptures. It's an ancient text that is a bit of a blend between a historical account and a creative narrative. The story tells of how Ptolemy II, the Greek king Philadelphus, the Greek king of Egypt, wanted to create a comprehensive library in Alexandria, which was the city founded by Alexander the Great, and thus commissioned this translation. So we're going to delve into the Letters of Aristeas now, a text with layers worth exploring. The letter purports to be a correspondence from Aristoteles and courtier to King Ptolemy II. The tale begins with Ptolemy's desire to obtain Jewish laws for his library, a hub of knowledge in Alexandria. Aristoteles writes about sending envoys to Jerusalem to ask the Jewish high priest Hellenistic to send 72 scholars to Alexandria to translate their holy books into Greek. The number 72 isn't random. It symbolises the harmonious collaboration between 12 tribes with 6 scholars from each tribe. To give you a taste of its blend of reality and legend, consider how the compilation of the translation was celebrated with a massive feast. The account gives a wonderful insight into cultural exchanges and the importance of shared knowledge across different peoples. Exploring these can deepen our understanding not just of history, but of the impact such stories can have. Philo of Alexandria, a brilliant figure in the world of ancient philosophy and Jewish thought. The kind you'd likely find exploring the deeper question of existence, much like those we ponder in stories like Jane Eyre. Philo lived during the early period of the 1st century AD in Alexandria, a city known for its vast library and cultural exchanges. He attempted to harmonise Jewish theology with Greek philosophy, offering a perspective where faith and reason could coexist. One of Philo's notable contributions was his use of analogy, interpreting the Hebrew scriptures through philosophical lenses. This means he didn't take biblical narratives literally, but saw them as symbolic stories revealing deeper truths about life, morality, and the universe. For example, Philo often used Ptolemaic concepts, merging them with the Judaic teachings. Ptolemaic philosophy speaks about the realm of ideas. Philo of Alexandria held a unique and pivotal relationship with the Jewish community, serving as a bridge between Jewish traditions and the Greco-Roman world. His works are fascinating and a bit like reading between the lines in a book, uncovering depth and connection. Philo was a prominent figure in Alexandria, known for his leadership within the Jewish community and his philosophical writings that amidst to harmonise Jewish religious traditions with Greek philosophy. His efforts helped in fostering understanding and respect between Jews and the broader Hellenistic society. Hellenism, as we've discussed before, is the spread of Greek culture. One of his significant roles was as an Jewish ambassador. He represented the Jewish community when tensions arose, especially during periods of conflict and misunderstanding with Roman authorities. For instance, during the reign of Emperor Caligula, Philo led an embassy to Rome to address grievances against acts of anti-Semitism in Alexandria. Philo's writings often reflect a deep devotion to his faith and people, while also being inclusive of philosophical thought. By influencing his understanding of Jewish scripture with philosophical analogy, he aimed to evaluate Jewish teachings in the eyes of those who followed Hellenistic philosophies. Given Philo's attempt to write, exploring Philo's life brings insights into how one can balance personal beliefs and embracing and respecting global intellectual traditions, a concept that's still very crucial today. Understanding the social context surrounding Philo of Alexandria involves delving into quite a turbulent period for the Jewish community in Alexandria. During Philo's lifetime, Alexandria was a melting pot of cultures. Being part of the Roman Empire, while cultural interactions could be enriching, they also led to friction, and sometimes these tensions escalated into hostilities. In Philo's time, Jews in Alexandria faced significant challenges, including episodes of social unrest and anti-Semitism. Such tensions often arose due to perceptions of differences, both religious and cultural, between Jews and other ethnic groups in Alexandria. The pressure to conform to the dominant Greco-Roman culture was immense. One particular harsh incident was during the reign of Emperor Caligula around 38 AD. Serious violence erupted against Jews in Alexandria. Philo himself described this upheaval in his work titled Embassy to Gaius, where he detailed the grievances of the Jewish community and served as an advocate for the rights in Rome. His efforts attempted to defend Jewish customs and seek justice amidst discrimination. Delving into this topic brings us into the complex and often difficult history of the Jewish community in in Alexandria during Philo's time. The tensions primarily arose from cultural and social political differences between the Jewish community and wider Greco-Roman populace. Jews in Alexandria had established their cultural rights, cultural and religious identities, which sometimes led to friction within the dominant Hellenistic practices. During Philo's lifetime, one significant episode was in 38 AD, when riots erupted in Alexandria. These disturbances were fueled by anti-Semitic Semitism and exuberated by accusations against Jews, claiming they had distanced themselves from the city's civic rights and practices. This often placed them in oppression to Roman expectations. A devastating consequence was the pogrom, a violent assembly led by locals who imposed harsh treatment on Jewish communities. And we're now going to explore this topic a bit further. The conflict during Philo's era was significant, especially as tension escalated into violence, largely due to underlying discriminatory attitudes and political motives. The Jewish community was actively involved in the city's commercial life and held significant contributions in various arenas. This promises, however, was met with resistance by other factions populating Alexandria. One crucial aspect to understand is the role of Roman governance. Roman officials often censored to the local populace some settlements, even when they were unfavourable to minority groups like the Jews. The events during the reign of Caligula and Nero illustrated how political instability and leadership failings could spark unrest against Jews. Anti-Jewish pogroms involved physical attacks, destruction of property, and restrictions on Jewish practices. Philo's writings, such as Amos, highlighted the severe mistreatment of Jews during these episodes. Philus, prior to being removed, reportedly allowed these tensions to escalate as part of the political manoeuvres. Specific details of the problem. So riots in Alexandria, 38 AD. This episode was marked by widespread social unrest in Alexandria. The pogroms were incited by serious tensions between the Jewish community and the broader Greek population within the city. These riots involved attacks on Jewish neighbours, destructions of synagogues, and forced participation in emperor worship, something that went against Jewish religious beliefs. Role of local governance. The local governance, notably under the Roman prefect, played a significant role in these events. This prefect was accused of neglecting the protection of Jews and pardoning to anti-Semitism, possibly due to political pressure from Alexandria's Greek populace. Actions as described by Philo showed a disregard for justice, that exuberance for violence. Philo's response. Philo undertook diplomatic efforts to counter these injustices. He led an embassy to Rome to plead the case before Emperor Caligula, asking intervention against these discriminative acts. Philo's philosophical and eloquent arguments were aimed at defending the rights of Jews and arguing for the interrogation of respectful citizens within the empire. The historical context of these pogroms demonstrates intrans-social prejudice and the severe impacts of political instability. It's a poignant reminder of the ongoing need for empathy, understanding, and advocacy when confronting discrimination. Dialogue and diplomacy. Philo demonstrated the power of dialogue by leading embassies using his intellectual prowess to communicate with Roman leaders. This approach highlights the importance of fostering discussions across different cultures and communities to promote understanding and resolve conflicts, initiating conversation based on mutual respect can break down prejudice and encourage empathy. Philosophic advocacy. Philo's efforts remind us of the strength in using philosophical arguments and ethical reasoning in adversary and promoting equality. By emphasising shared values such as justice and morality across cultures, we can create bridges even in challenging scenarios. Civic engagement. Philo's leadership in Alexandria underscores the significance of active participation in civic matters, whether by representing community interests or influencing policy changes. Individuals can champion diversity and inclusion within social frameworks. Education and awareness. Finding ways to educate and raise awareness about different cultures and histories, much like learning new perspectives in literature, can effectively counter ignorance and prejudice. It's about nurturing an informal society that understands and values diversity. The pogrom that took place in Alexandria during Philo's time was horrific, involving significant losses. The tragic events during the Alexandria pogrom in 838 AD involved violence against the Jewish community, although historical accounts vary in the Pacific, such as the extent of the forces. Physical attacks. Jews faced brutal physical assaults during these riots. Rioters driven by intense anti-Semitism. Tackling such a poignant topic requires sensitivity, as it's crucial to understand the devastating impact it had on the communities involved. The anti-Jewish pogrom in Alexandria under Roman rule were infamous for their violence against the Jewish populations. They were varied. The Septuagint is a fascinating topic to explore, especially it's rich with history, investigation, and even a hint of mystery. Origins. The Septuagint is a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, believed to have been completed by the 3rd century BCE. It was originally commissioned in Alexandria, a city known for its intellectual and cultural vibrancy. Translation legend. According to the story recounted in the letters of Aristeas, the translation involved 72 Jewish scholars invited by King Ptolemy II. The legend says each scholar worked independently but produced identical translations which were considered a divine miracle. Purpose: the translation served the needs of Jews in the Hellenistic world who spoke Greek and found it difficult to read the Hebrew scriptures. It also contributed to the spread and understanding of Jewish teachings among non-Jewish communities, enhancing cross-cultural dialogue. Influence: the Septuagint later played a critical role in the development of early Christian theology. Many of the earliest Christians spoke Greek, and so they used the Septuagint as their primary text for understanding the scriptures. Textual differences: due to translation usage, the Septuagint has some notable textual differences compared to the Hebrew Bible. These variations have sparked considerable scholarly debates over the centuries. Translation is such a fascinating process, especially within ancient texts like the Hebrew scriptures. Cultural bridging: the translation enabled Jews living in the Hellenistic world to access their scriptures more comfortably. Many of them spoke Greek due to the dominant cultural influence, facilitating a bridge between Jewish traditions and Greek culture. This pollination of ideas prompted mutual respect and understanding. Preservation and accessibility: the translation preserved the teachings of Judaism for future generations and made the scriptures accessible to those outside the Hebrew-speaking world. Imagine that is similar to having translated literary works today because many literary works are translated into many different languages. Influence on early Christianity: because Greek was the prevalent language among many early Christians, the Septuagint significantly influenced the New Testament, because with the historical Jesus, if it did exist, which I doubt, would have spoke Aramaic, which was a form of Greek. Christian, it serves as a foundation for much of Christian biblical scholarship. Literary and scholarly insights: study of the Septuagint helps scholars understand linguistic nuances and developments of religious thought over centuries. It provides insights into different interpretations and vantage points. Interpretation and meaning: every translation involves choices that affect meaning. An understanding of these choices can enrich one's grasp of the text depth, much like delving into layers of metaphor in a piece of literature. It informs how values and beliefs might adapt across cultures. The Septuagint, often abbreviated as LXX, is a compelling topic, particularly if you're drawn to historical and literary explorations. It's a window into the ancient world, not just into it linguistically, but cultural too. What is the Septuagint? Essentially, the Septuagint is a Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures. Its creation is dated back to the 3rd century BCE in Alexandria, a hub of cultural exchanges and scholarly activity. Legend of, according to, I've already mentioned that. Right, so some facts about the Septuagint. Origin name. The name Septuagint comes from a Latin word meaning 70. It's a nod to the legend claiming 72 scholars working independently translated the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. The story concludes with them producing identical translations, highlighting a mystical element of these historical texts. Scope and content. The Septuagint contains not just translations of the Hebrew Bible, but also additional texts regarding apocrypha texts by some traditions. These add depth and breadth to the religious and cultural landscape of the period. Language gift. Greek was the lingua franca in the historical world, in the Hellenistic world, extending its influence far beyond Greece. Therefore, this transition was crucial for people who couldn't read Hebrew but understood Greek, putting the Septuagint in a unique historical context. Textual influence. Quotes and references to the Septuagint appear in the New Testament, illustrating its significance in early Christian writings and how it shaped religious narratives. Different religious traditions view the contents of the Septuagint differently, especially regarding communal structures. For instance, the Orthodox Church includes several texts from the Septuagint not found in the Jewish Tanka or Protestant Old Testament, highlighting diverse religious interpretations. Scholarly debate. The textual differences between the Septuagint and the Hebrew Bible have sparked debates and research among scholars exploring the depth of translation work, historical context, and logistical choices. These are quite fascinating. Michelle R. Goldenberg's work on the origins of Judaism, particularly Chapter 6, Diaspora and Homeland, offers a rich tapestry of historical and cultural exploration. The diaspora influence. Chapter 6 likely delves into how Jewish communities maintained their cultural and religious identities while scattered beyond their homeland. This diaspora experience includes how these communities adapted yet retained core beliefs. Cultural exchanges. Being in the diaspora often involves cultural intermingling, which sometimes enrich Jewish practices while creating tensions. Balancing with mirrors connection to homeland. Despite the geographical diaspora, the longing and spiritual attachment to the homeland remained central to Jewish identity. This concept reflects a profound connection and nostalgia familiar in any storyline involving homecoming or identity. Adaptation and resilience. Goldenberg's analysis might highlight the resilience required to adapt to diverse environments while nurturing their traditions. Religious and cultural dynamic. The chapter probably discusses the interaction between Jewish communities and surrounding cultures and how these exchanges shape both internal practices and external perceptions. This dichotomy resonating with Lawrence H. Schifferman's exploration in texts and traditions, particularly the section titled The Literature of the Hellenistic diaspora presents such an enthralling study. Literal diver Schiffelman likely examines varieties of literary works produced during the Hellenistic diaspora, illustrating how Jewish authors engaged with and adapted Greek genres and literature. Cultural synthesis. The literature reflects a blending of Jewish and Hellenistic influences, showcasing an interplay of cultural ideas and philosophical concepts, like witnessing a fusion of themes across genres. Identity. Within these texts, there's often a lucid reflection on identity when Jewish writers navigated the tensions between their cultural heritage and dominant Hellenistic society. Historical context. Schiffman's analysis might delve into the historical backdrop against which these writings emerged, offering insights into political, social, religious dynamics of the era. Such text enriches the understanding of the literal role and significance during that time. Common themes might include diaspora belonging and cultural resilience, ideas that echo universal storytelling elements. Philo of Alexandria's writings, their preservation by Christians, is a fascinating subject, blending history, philosophy, and religious studies. Philosophical interrogation. Philo's approach to igniting Jewish thought with Greek philosophy made his writings particularly appealing. He employed an analogical interpretation, creating bridges between Judaism and Hellenistic ideas. Christians admired his synthesis of philosophy with theology. Ptolemaic influence. Philo's work frequently included Ptolemaic principles such as the idea of abstract ideas and forms, which resonated with early Christian thinkers. These philosophical underpinnings were instrumental in shaping early theological frameworks as they explored themes of the divine order and spiritual reality. Method. His archaeological method of scripture interpretation provides a model that Christians found useful in understanding their own scriptures. This interpretive lens helped connect the Old Testament to the New Testament teachings, enriching theological narratives with deep meanings. Philo existed at a cultural crossroads, representing both Jewish traditions and Greek thought. This unique position often offered Christians valuable insights and methods for engaging with diverse cultural and intellectual climates. Predecessor of Christian philosophy. Early Christians saw Philo as a predecessor, laying groundwork in merging spiritual beliefs and philosophical discourse. His concepts of Logos and a universal faith paved pathways into Christian philosophical traditions, enhancing their view of divinity and moral law. So here's a story that I've made up. Fictional story that I've come up with about the topic that we've been discussing this week. In the bustling city of Alexandria, where the scent of the sea mingled with the whispers of scholars, young Helena walked the cobblestone streets with her heart full of anticipation. Her father, a renowned scribe, was there to witness the momentous task of translating Hebrew scriptures in Greek, a project destined to bridge worlds across languages, barriers and cultural divides. Elena was an avid reader, enchanted by tales and wisdoms between the pages of ancient scrolls. One day she visited the Grand Library, its arches echoing the footsteps of knowledge seekers from all corners of the earth. It was there she met a young Greek scholar, Theo, equally curious and searching for the connection between their shared histories. Together, Elena and Theo ventured deeper into the library's labyrinth, discovering hidden alcoves filled with scrolls, some yellowed with age, others newly inked with fresh thoughts. They noticed that although the texts were different in language, a shared narrative pulsed beneath tales of struggle, redemption, and divine wisdom. This librarian of stories and tradition guided them to a quiet reading nook. Here lies the original Hebrew scripture, he said softly, a testament to the journey of a people walking alongside the skies and guided by ancient melodies. He laid before them another scroll and flinching listened. The translation spoke with voices from across the spectrum of languages and philosophies, offering glimpses of understanding to those seeking truth beyond borders. As the day dipped into twilight, Elena and Theo pored over each document, their faces bathed in the warm glow of flickering candle flame. They realised that the power of words was not merely in their literal meanings, but in their ability to connect diverse souls. It was a gift, an invisible thread weaving throughout humanity's collective journey. Inspired, Elena took to her parchment, crafting stories where ancestral wisdom danced with current dreams, while Theo contemplated philosophical essays on unity, weaving together ideas both ancient and modern. Together, they envisaged a world where stories unshackled minds and inspired hearts, much like the bridges erected by Hebrew scriptures and the Septuagint. Thus, in the embrace of knowledge and friendship, Elena and Theo continued their voyage through narrative and philosophy, ensuring that the dialogues inspired by these texts lived on, guiding future generations through life's ever-evolving narrative. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, now concludes this week's episode of this month's episode of Every Day is a School Day with the Butterfly Princess. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode, and I hope you can join me next week for next week's episode. But until then, take care and bye-bye for now. Bye!